Everyone is a theologian. If you ever think about who God is or what he's like, what he asks of you in your life, then you're doing theology. So we want to explore the real lives and stories of everyday theologians in Houston and explore what it looks like to take your faith outside of Sunday mornings and Bible studies and into the real world. So with that, welcome to Everyday Theology. This is a new podcast initiative that we're really excited about, where we're just going to interview and have conversations with cool people in Houston that are living out their faith in their work, in their families, and hear from them. So I am Sarah Stone. I'm the executive director for Theology by the Pint, which you can come to our events and have a lot of fun. If you go to theologybythepint.org, you can check out all of our upcoming events. But we talk about theology and philosophy and faith and culture war stuff, and we get into some spicy topics, but we drink beer and we have a great sense of humor. So go to theologybythepint.org, check out all of our upcoming events, come and visit us. But here in the podcast, we like to dig a little deeper, and so we're trying something new with this Everyday Theology initiative. So I am joined today by Bob Sutton, who I met a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I'm going to let you tell people like who you are, but tell us a little bit just about who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive a little deeper. Who is Bob Sutton?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
First. Yeah. Wow. Where to start? So I'm Bob Sutton. I'm married. I have 4 kids. 3 from my first marriage, 1 from my second. I live in Houston. Was born and raised in Houston area. Now I am the COO of a recruiting company called Core Group Resources based in Katy. Been there for 5 years, and previously, like in my very early life after college, was on staff with Young Life for a number of years. So a little bit of ministry experience. Yeah. And, but then realized that I didn't feel called to be in, that type of ministry, but always wanted to be involved. And so moved into the corporate world and have been here ever since.
Okay, so COO is Chief Operating Officer. So
Yes.
You make the machine run, basically, but you're the top make the machine run guy, right?
One of the top, yeah.
Okay. And we've actually been there. We did a lunch and learn there, which was a lot of fun. Getting out into the corporate world and hearing what people think about spiritual things when they're not at church. It was cool. So it's interesting, though, at that event, we asked the question, we went around the table, there were probably by the end, there were probably 25 people there. Mm-hmm. And we asked if it turned out there was, because they are from all different faiths or no faith. And so we asked if it turned out there was a God and you could ask one question, what would it be? And I remember 3 or 4 people said, I don't even know. I've never even thought about this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, we can come back to you. And then by the end, they're thinking of a million things because once the conversation got going. But that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today is how do you have conversations about important things, eternal things, when you're, just going about day to day. So it's a recruitment firm.
Recruiting company. We do recruiting, staffing, and oil and gas and offshore, maritime, heavy, light industrial. We're all over the map. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you bring faith into that world? But before we get into how you do that, or if you do that, or what it's like, or just tell us a little bit about your own faith story. Did you grow up in a Christian home? How did that?
Yeah. I did grow up in a Christian home. Grew up going to First United Methodist Church of Conroe.
Okay.
And moved to the Woodlands in junior high. But grew up going to church. Kind of felt like maybe God is real, and then kind of somewhere in there was nah, this is all a joke. And then actually got tricked into going to a Christian summer camp.
This is the Young Life way. Was it Young Life?
It wasn't Young Life.
Okay. Because they are a little tricky sometimes.
It was before the summer between 8th and 9th grade. I went to, it was a church camp. And that was the first time the gospel was laid out in sequential process order arrangement.
Arrange, yeah.
And where my little brain could actually understand.
Yeah.
Because I think going to Sunday school, hearing sermons, week in, week out, it just wasn't laid out like that. Yeah. In the same way. And so, did the whole thing, walked down the aisle. I mean, did the summer camp thing. And
so if some of our listeners might be like, what is walking down the aisle? Did you get married to Jesus?
I did.
What is that?
It was basically like, hey, if you came to a new relationship or came to a relationship with Jesus this week and want to
like tell everybody,
or just raise your hand that you experienced that, then come up to the front.
Yeah.
We didn't have to do anything or say anything in front of anybody. It was just, I think the leaders of the camp were just like, they wanted to know, like, who has been profoundly affected this week. And so I was one of those kids. And my sister went with me. She was there on that same week, and she came to faith that week too. And so
that's really cool.
Yeah. And so we kind of came back home. I was like a hellion. I was a troublemaker as a kid.
Okay.
And my sister and I fought. She's 3 years younger than me. We fought every day of our lives. And mainly me, because I was just picking on her. And then coming home, it was like, hey, why am I doing that? I kind of like this person. She's actually really cool. And we became instant friends after that, which
you attribute that to
100%.
Yeah.
I think my parents were kind of freaked out because they were like, what did they do to you at this camp? But, and then, through that, didn't get involved in Young Life. When I got into high school, met a group of guys that had grown up together, and I kind of just fell in with their group of friends. And
so not having grown up in Texas, Young Life, it's everywhere, but it's a big deal in Texas. It's not as big a deal where I grew up. So I'd sort of loosely heard of it, but it's basically it's like an organization that's really in high schools and I guess colleges, helping people kind of define their faith and like.
Yeah. It basically, the founder, a guy named Jim Rayburn, I know all about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, give us the pitch.
So it started in Dallas or north of Dallas in like the 1940s. And his whole thing was it's a sin to bore kids with the gospel.
Oh, I love that,
and
actually.
So it was just like, a weekly kind of meeting, but it was more, they wanted it to feel kind of like a party celebration. And then he started doing these camping. His idea of camping, summer camping, was like high adventure in Colorado and Canada and, very exotic and somewhat dangerous places. Cause he was like, hey, this is exciting. Like,
an actual adventure.
Yeah. It should be exciting. And so, I bought into that. Like, full bore when I was in high school. I was just like, this is, because that's, especially at that age, you just want to experience life.
Have fun.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that was high school, and then it kind of carried into college, and then would you say it was just steadily grown since then, or have you had any sort of shocks to the system? And again, share what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. I think different phases of life had different, challenges, but college I went to Baylor, Baptist school. It was, growing up Methodist, I was kind of a spiritual mutt, to be honest. Like I went to a lot of different churches in high school where, they might just had a fun kind of youth thing. Yeah. And so got, experienced Presbyterian church, Bible church, Baptist church, Methodist church. And so,
maybe that's why you're comfortable at Theology by the Pint.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of everything here.
Yeah. I kind of like the dialogue is very interesting to me. And then got married after college, worked for Young Life for a few years, went into the corporate world. And I think the biggest not challenge to my faith, the biggest, I actually started taking classes at Dallas Seminary in my late 20s, never with the intention of getting a degree, but more just because I was curious. I was like, hey, how's the Bible put together? What does all this theology stuff mean? I still don't have a degree. I'm not sure that I'll ever get a master's level, higher level degree, but it's always been interesting to me, just like different perspectives and learning how those took shape. So,
So it's cool because in high school, it was laid out in a way you could understand. Then Young Life took you on sort of the fun, adventurous route, and then you fed your brain, by taking
and then
these.
Dallas Seminary, like the boringest route.
Boring. We love Dallas Theological Seminary for anyone.
We do. It's just it was compared to Young Life, it's very heavy.
Yes. It was in the weeds.
And I'm not the best reader, so, seminary was tough.
Yeah. Okay, so fast forward. So now you're in the corporate world, and this is where I'm just going to ask everybody that does this podcast, what is it like to be a person of faith, and your faith is really important to you, at work? I mean, how open can you be? What form does that take? Does everyone at work know that you're a Christian? Do you walk us through what that kind of looks like?
Yeah, so our workplace is pretty, I don't know, this is completely unique, but it is special in that we have God-centered as one of our core values that we're very, it's on our website. It's
Really?
Yeah.
But it's not a Christian company per se?
The owner is a Christian, but
Okay.
we wouldn't, you don't have to be a Christian to work there or anything like that.
Like a Hobby Lobby. I shouldn't have said that.
I don't know.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, that's not the same.
I'm not familiar with their policies, but no, the way we frame it is that, we're all serving something greater than ourselves. If you're here to serve yourself, you're in the wrong place.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how we frame it.
Yeah.
But also when we're interviewing anybody, we'll tell them hey, you'll hear conversations around things of faith. So we do have Bible studies on occasion. We have quarterly prayer meetings. We have, people talk about spiritual things here. So if that is uncomfortable to you, then maybe this isn't the best place. But
hey guys, Sarah Stone here. Sorry to interrupt what I'm sure is a riveting podcast episode, but Theology by the Pint needs your help to continue providing these podcasts, offering our in-person events, and growing so we can bring thoughtful conversation and the hope of the gospel to a world that's increasingly walking away from church and from faith. Now that we're a 501c3 nonprofit, all donations are tax deductible, so we've crunched the numbers, and if each listener of this episode gave just $1 for each episode you listen to, we'd put a huge dent in our annual budget. So consider giving today. Go to theologybythepint.org/give and click the link to donate. Thanks so much, and now back to our show.
But no one's, all of that is voluntary and optional, and it's after hours even, so people don't have to,
you don't have to do that to work there.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, we do have people of different faiths, and atheists there and everything.
Yeah.
So, but they're I hope they're comfortable. They've been there for a while. So yeah. But for me, it's not really a huge challenge. I think most of the people that are there, I was a part of their interview process. They know, hey, I've already told them these things that we're going to have a prayer meeting. We took 5 employees on a mission trip with Mission of Hope last 2 months ago.
Wow. Is that the one that you meant that you took your kids on to?
Yeah.
Oh man,
it was a work.
You are mingling work and family. I am here for it.
Mission trip. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So we're very open about it, but it's just kind of hey, if we have there's a company or an organization called Marketplace Chaplains. Have you heard of them? So it's this chaplaincy that we it's a vendor or not a vendor. They serve our company, and they are in the office every week, just walking around, praying with people, asking how they can pray or support. So we do a lot to just encourage, kind of not it's not evangelistic in nature, but it is just hey, we want you to know that you're supported, and if you have questions, we're here to talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not as maybe difficult a threshold as it might be somewhere that you really have to kind of keep that thing on the down low. You guys have some freedom there to share that kind of thing. And do people ever come up to you and say oh, so I know you're a Christian and I have a question, or will you pray for me? Or okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's actually been really good. The last 2 years we've had just a lot of people that are just in hardship, or just frankly just asking for prayer, and it's I'm happy to,
Man, that's a cool place to work. If I knew anything about recruiting, but I don't. So one of the questions I was going to ask everybody that comes on here, that this might not fit, so you let me know if you're actually there's none, but are there any obstacles that you find in being a person of faith at your work? Does that ever make things tricky, or maybe ask something extra of you?
That's, I think, well, yeah, actually, I think again, I'm a spiritual mutt, so I've seen a lot of things, but we have some people on staff, or have in the past, that are from a particular stream of faith that might be a little bit more hard line on certain things.
Yeah.
And so maybe they want to lead a Bible study or lead something. And we've had this happen in the past where they're like, come down kind of fire and brimstone.
On a particular non-essential.
Yeah. And like, I'll be in the back of the room, like just welling up, like, oh God, please don't keep going with this. And then have to pull them aside after and be like, hey, like, this is a big tent, like this is a big tent company. We are not, this particular stream of theology. We are big tent. So you can't come in. Guns blazing.
We're not going to guns blaze on like infant baptism or reformed theology or something like. Got it.
So that's actually. So it's usually the Christians that are the problem, not the non-Christians.
So that's very similar to Theology by the Pint, because we're constantly trying to find that place of like, we want to be faithful and have conviction about what matters, but hold loosely, but not so loosely that we say they're not important,
right? But
hold loosely the non-essentials, so we can say like, hey, we can all drink a beer and enjoy this together and not have to all agree about, fill in the blank.
And usually if I'm bristling in the back of the room, it's typically because I might know there's other people in the room that are like either baby Christians and don't know anything, or aren't even, just like exploring. And if they come, hear something that's like, really, really inside baseball, or like, it's like, obviously it's non-essential, but we're going to argue about it anyway. It's like, I don't want them. I don't want people that are like, it's just not
anyone that's on the fence. You don't want to put a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Because we can argue. We're friends, so we can argue. But if we're not friends, then like, I don't know. We got to figure out the friendship part first.
Yeah. Oh man, this is like core of who Theology by the Pint is, figuring all that kind of stuff out. Yeah. Core group resources is where he works. Okay. So speaking of Theology by the Pint, you've been to a few of our events, and you can go to theologybythepint.org to maybe see Bob at one of our upcoming events. But have there ever been any that you found either like particularly interesting, challenging, thought-provoking, or that maybe affected the way you thought through something that was happening in your life or in your work?
There are actually two that come to mind.
Even if you didn't like it, you can say that, because we know they're not all winners.
No, the one on sex trafficking was, I think, particularly shocking. Maybe I think that'd be the best way to put it. Where it was, I don't know. It was
difficult.
It was a difficult one to sit through, but also eye-opening. I mean, I think I learned a lot, and I feel like leaving there, like I was thinking about it for weeks afterwards.
Yeah. I think you texted me something like, as a parent especially. Yeah. Like, I don't want to know these things, but I need to know these things.
Yeah. And then the other one was the Satanist one.
Ooh, that's one of my favorites, actually. I talk about that all the time. It's shocking to people, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. That one was very, very interesting. So,
Yeah. You guys can go back and listen to that. Well, actually, both of them on our YouTube page. But okay, so what are you into right now? Are you reading anything interesting? Are you noodling on some aspect of your faith or about Christianity? Are you in like a small group or a Bible study? Anything that's like, what's on your mind in faith life? Yeah,
so I'm a part of a C12. Which is familiar with C12?
Yeah. So Andrew is going to be coming on the show sometime in the next bit. Yeah.
So I've been in.
But
C12
say what that is, because our listeners may.
Yeah, it's a group of primarily it's Christian business owners or CEOs. I'm in a kind of a secondary group. It's called the Key Players Group for basically non-CEOs, anybody who's at C level but not owning or kind of second chair, I guess. But it's a group. We get together once a month and kind of talk through. There's like a devotional, then there's a business component, which is kind of like the type of content you would get in business school. Like it's actually really
leadership development kind of stuff.
And you can get into budgeting, finance, operational development, like organizational development. It's really, really interesting. And then you kind of have that group as kind of an advisory board. To bounce off challenges that you're facing and stuff like that. So there's a lot of encouragement in that group. my group leader, his name's Steve. Steve, I don't know, 6 months ago, he encouraged me to read a book called Sacred Pace by Terry Looper, I think.
Oh, Terry Looper.
He's here in town.
Yeah. He's Houstonian.
He wrote this book, and it's just about like letting God lead your business and like waiting on God's answers for questions you have in your life. I finished it a few weeks ago, and it was just very convicting because I'm just an action-oriented person. I like to make decisions. I like also to think that I'm really smart and I can just come up with answers, and God would agree with me. So that's got to be the right thing. And so it's just all about kind of slowing down, and submitting things to prayer, and I cannot say I'm good at that, but it's been.
But that was challenging.
Challenge.
Yeah. I went to a meeting yesterday for a group very similar to C12. In fact, Andrew was there for Leader Impact, which is another kind of faith in business initiative. And the guy said something recently that he'd been challenged with is he read a book or heard somebody say to carve out space in your life to think. That was it. I thought that's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Because we're like, so I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to do it, but just to think. And I would, include in there like pray and wait on God, which is hard to do when you're fast paced and adventurous and all that.
Yeah.
Speaking of adventurous, we didn't even talk about somewhere in between Young Life and being a COO, or maybe sort of at the same time, you also had a side business.
I did.
Just started as fun, and then tell us about that. I think it's fun.
Yeah. So I think it was 2017, someone who worked at the same company as me named Holly. Holly and I started a cocktail mixer business.
See, this is why you're the perfect first person to be on this show, because we like cocktails.
It was born out of my family kitchen. I made it I think for 4 or 5 years, every year for Thanksgiving, and it went into this sangria. It was a simple syrup, and then I started putting it in old-fashioned cocktails and gave it to a few bartender friends who were making other kind of drinks with it, and people kept asking for it, and I was just like, maybe I'm onto something, and asked Holly to be a business partner. So she and I developed this little business, and it grew. We had 3 flavors of cocktails. We were working.
They were all simple syrups that you could add in to make a cocktail.
Yes, and it got pretty big. We were in Specs. We were in Williams-Sonoma. We were in
a bunch of boutiques in the Heights is where I would get it. Yeah,
HEB was like we were part of like their up and coming program.
Yeah.
And it grew to a point where Holly and I, it was both a side project for both of us, and it grew to a point where neither of us could take it. We really either needed to quit our
do that
jobs and do that full time, or hire somebody, and there wasn't enough revenue. I mean, there wasn't enough profit to actually hire somebody and support a full-time salary. So we just kind of maintained it and ended up shutting it down last year.
Much to my great sadness. If you've ever been to my house around fall or Christmas time and had my fall mocktail or cocktail, that was in it. Sigh. So
it was a 7-year adventure. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. That's cool. I love that. So last question, just do you have, one, is there anything that you wish I'd asked that I didn't? But then also, do you have any advice or encouragement for people that are in maybe a similar workplace to yours or similar industry to yours about being Christians in the workplace? Just anything.
I think my workplace is, again, pretty not completely unique. There are a lot of other companies that are like ours, but I think my advice would just be to like be available. And the biggest challenge, but also where I've seen the most fruit, is when I actually create margin in my day to like stop and talk to people, which sounds really stupid.
It doesn't sound stupid,
but it's whether it's someone you walk by every day, to just stop and say, how are you doing? And for me, it's learning their family members' names, which, oh my gosh, there's nothing more fundamental than like knowing people's names, but just asking, and like,
yeah.
So when times are good, times are good. When times are hard, you might actually be able to like, I mean, possibly pray for somebody if they want that. But that's really where I've seen fruit in our office is just from taking the time to just ask how people are doing. Because, which is like, gosh,
it seems so simple, but
it seems so dumb. Just saying like,
it's not dumb though. It sounds like something everyone should be doing, but it's not something everyone's doing, which is why it's special.
Yeah. Well,
but I like the way you said it, to create margin in your day. Like, you have to be intentional about that.
Well, like what you said, taking time to think. It's like kind of the same thing, taking time to build relationship that's not just transactional, which a lot of, we're in oil and gas and all, it's just high speed, ROI, which those things are important. Like, you got to be successful, you got to move fast, but not for the sake of missing the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I love that. Okay, so if anyone is interested in like picking your brain more after they hear this, I don't know how much you want people intruding on your life, but where could people find you? Like, are you on social media? How can people stalk you is what I'm asking. You can be like, no. We actually have a guy that comes here and he's like, don't come looking for me. I'm nowhere. I'm a mystery. I'm a vapor.
I think I'm on social media, but I think my profiles are private now because I have teenagers and they've asked me to make them private because they're like, I don't want my friends stalking old pictures of me. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll make mine private.
Do you think they actually think that, or do you think they're just embarrassed by you? I'm mostly joking, but I'm trying to picture. I could totally see my daughter being like, listen, for my sake. But really, she's like, oh, I can't have my friends seeing you on social media.
I'm not going to wrap this up yet because I want to say one thing, which is, I don't know if you watch dating shows.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're watching Bachelorette right now. We've watched Love is Blind.
Yes, Love is Blind.
On some of these shows, you see guys showing up with like two-piece outfits. It looks like a bathing suit that is also a shirt. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like the same material.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was the most ridiculous looking thing. Like, I don't know where they got these things.
Right.
And so we went on a family cruise this summer and I bought 3 of them. And so one was like banana yellow with big palm leaves on it and flowers. And so that was my profile picture on Facebook
See,
and
I think
Instagram.
that my idea has merit then.
Yeah. So there might be some embarrassment to answer your question.
That's amazing. Okay.
They can find me there if they really need to chase me down.
Got it. Okay. Well, again, come to our events, and all of the people that we're going to be having on here will kind of be in the atmosphere of Theology by the Pint. But thanks so much for joining us and sharing your story. Yeah. And again, theologybythepint.org. Go there to check out all the stuff we have coming up. And until we see you again, we encourage you, as always, to question freely, think deeply, and disagree as needed.